It's like there's always some reason why our toddler isn't ready to go to bed yet. He wants milk, he needs to find a toy. He's calling out for us after we've left the room.
Welcome to Late Night Notes, the parenting podcast that answers the questions keeping you up at night so you can rest a little easier. I'm your host, journalist, author and mum of four, Madeleine Grummett. Tonight's episode is all about toddler bedtimes. We'll be lifting the covers on why toddlers call out and get out of bed. Plus, we'll give you expert-backed ideas for helping toddlers wind down and support for you when you're finding bedtimes particularly tough. But first, let's have a listen to tonight's Late Night Note.
Hi, my name's Rishi, and right now it feels like we're living through the world's longest bedtimes. We've got 2 kids, one's 2.5, the other's 5. And it's like there's always some reason why our toddler isn't ready to go to bed yet. He wants milk, he needs to find a toy. He's calling out for us after we've left the room. The older one's actually getting to sleep faster. It feels like it's taking over an hour every night. And by the time my partner and I finish up, we just think, where's the night gone? So I'm just looking for ideas to make bedtime a bit smoother for him and for us.
Toddlers. There's a lot going on for these tiny people, which is why it's so important to help them wind down smoothly at bedtime. They need their sleep. So what can we do when we've got a toddler who seems to have a lot left to do at bedtime? To help us unpack tonight's Late Night Note, I'm welcoming back Professor Harriet Hiscock, our amazing expert for after hours. And to bring you up to speed, Harriet is a sleep specialist and consultant paediatrician with 20 years of experience working with Australia's leading children's hospitals and research centres, not to mention helping countless families get the rest they need. So we are in great hands here. Welcome, Harriet.
Thank you.
So, Harriet, we've just heard from Rishi, who sounds like he's living through the world's longest bedtimes. Why do toddlers have such a hard time settling down at night?
Well, this is a really, really common thing, and it's part of normal toddler development. Toddlers are becoming more independent around this age, and they want to test out new skills and things that they can do and do for themselves. And that particularly seems to happen around bedtime.
And so there are a number of developmental factors that can influence sleep with toddlers. One of those, of course, is testing boundaries and practicing independence. What are some of the things and behaviours we would see in toddlers when they are trying these?
Well, I think what Rishi told us about, your toddler may come in and out of the bedroom several times at the start of the night. I want a drink. I want to go to the toilet. I want to tell you something. There's monsters. They'll think up all sorts of things, but they may genuinely want to go and practice some of those skills, going to the toilet by themselves, getting a drink. Also, I think this is a time when we see them practicing new motor skills, so climbing out of their bed because they can.
Of course, and being in a bed is a great milestone, of course, for a toddler, but it gives them that ability to move around, of course. And so what about growth spurts at this age?
Yeah, there seems to be sometimes there's a coincidence of, growth spurts and more disturbed sleep. So that does happen. And then there's a smaller group perhaps of toddlers who are genuinely really upset and fearful around going to sleep. They've often got very good imaginations, vivid imaginations, and they're thinking about things. And, that's another reason why toddlers might be coming in and out of bed at the start of the night.
So they're feeling a bit worried about something. And so as a parent, how would you then reassure your toddler and gently bring them back to the bed?
Yeah, so look, it all starts with a good bedtime routine, to be honest. And, that sort of predictability for toddlers helps them settle down and be calm before going to bed. And a bedtime routine might look like dinner, followed by bath or a shower, into pyjamas, a book, brush your teeth, or the other way round, and then into bed.
They sound like amazing, effective steps in a bedtime routine. But of course we know parents at the end of the day are exhausted. There's a lot going on. They might have been working through the day. Everyone's tank is a little bit empty.
Yep.
What does a really simple bedtime routine look like for a toddler?
Yeah, look, I think it's just the essentials then. So obviously getting changed into pyjamas, brushing your teeth, and then thinking about perhaps just a short book or a song or a cuddle before going into bed.
So Harriet, now that we've done the bedtime routine, what are the other things we can do to help our toddler to settle?
Well, there's a few things we can do to stop them coming out of their room, and that's really to do a check. Make sure they've done all the things that they might want to come out for. Have they had their last drink? Have they been to the toilet? Have they had a cuddle? Have they had something to eat? And we call these curtain calls in the in the sleep world.
Because there can be a lot of drama.
Exactly, very true. And it's just checking they've met all those needs before they go to bed.
And so then if we think back to Rishi, our late night note caller, who was really struggling with a toddler who was up and down a lot and calling out, what are some of the effective verbal reassurance techniques that someone like Rishi could use?
Yeah, so Rishi could just stay outside the bedroom, say, it's okay, good night, it's sleep time, it's time to go to sleep. If his toddler keeps coming out, then he can take them back into their room and keep this pretty brief and hands off, and just say, I love you very much, but it's sleep time, maybe a kiss, good night, it's time to go to sleep. And keep doing that each time his toddler comes out of the room. And eventually toddlers recognise, oh, if I come out, I'm just going to go back again with a kiss from Dad, I might as well settle down.
Right, or you could even tag team, I suppose, with someone else in doing that. Now, there's another thing that can be used called a free pass or a bedtime pass.
Yes.
What's that? Explain how that works.
Yeah, so this is a great concept. It's where you design a little pass out with your toddler, so on a piece of paper.
Like an actual physical...
Like a physical card or pass out, and they can come out at the start of the night and use that for one reason: to have a drink, to have a cuddle, to go to the toilet. Then they hand that pass over to you, and that's it for the night. And then if they can stay in their room till the morning, then they get lots of praise in the morning. Well done, I'm so proud of you. What a big boy, you've stayed in your room, that's brilliant. And you may then choose to add a reward to that.
Okay, so really praising, just so I'm hearing you correctly, so you're praising the toddler first,
Yep.
and then you might choose to offer them some sort of reward.
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
and typical rewards are, often a stamp or a sticker on a chart. And I often say after 4 stickers in a row, they get a lucky dip. But keep that small and inexpensive.
So not a car.
Not a car.
Yeah.
Not
Okay.
a car.
Okay, good. And then what about let's just think back to a toddler who really isn't settling. So you're doing all the things, you're outside the room, you're really trying to employ all these techniques to help meet their needs. What is appropriate comforting for upset toddlers? We know with very young babies, often there can be settling techniques that are different, but what would you do with a toddler, perhaps like Rishi's toddler, who really isn't responding to some of those settling techniques?
Yeah, I think if they're not responding to the bedtime pass or they're coming in and out, and just remembering those techniques can take 5, 6, 7, 8 nights to work. It's not a one-night thing. Then you may need to spend a bit of time just being in your toddler's room, perhaps putting a comfortable chair next to their bed and staying with them until they're quiet and calm, and maybe even falling asleep, and then perhaps after the next few nights staying with them until they're quiet and calm, but not yet asleep, but working at a pace that your toddler can tolerate and manage.
Which is great if it's working, and sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't, of course. And we've just heard from Rishi, who's been feeling a lot of frustration, it sounds like, about trying to get his toddler to settle at night in these endless bedtime routines. So what can parents do if they are getting to that level of frustration where it feels like they just cannot get their toddler to settle?
Yeah, it's actually quite a common scenario when parents can feel quite frustrated and worry that they're getting a bit rough or aggressive with their child.
Or they might feel like they're going to hurt their child.
Exactly. And there's a few things they can do. They can step out of the bedroom, take a moment to reset, count to 5 in their head, take a few deep breaths, and then go back into the bedroom when they're feeling calm and settled again. If there's another adult in the house, perhaps that other adult could take over with the nighttime settling, or they could tag team as well. And there's always 24/7 help through various parent lines that we have, so they can pick up the phone, speak to someone and get real-time support for this issue of getting their toddler to sleep at the start of the night.
And knowing that help is always available and there, and counting to 5, I think that's a great strategy for all of us.
It is.
Well, Harriet, thank you so much for joining us to share your expertise about how we help toddlers to settle at night. Do you have any final tips for parents who are listening?
Look, I think the important thing is to look after yourself so that you are calm. You can then help your toddler with their sleep and development. And also with some of these things, they don't work the first night or the second night. So you might need to give it a go for, 4, 5, 6, 7 or 8 nights before you see some change. But remember, most of this is typical toddler development.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again, Harriet. Well, that was another brilliant chat with Harriet. So what have we learned about toddler bedtimes? Here's tonight's notes. First up, things like calling out and getting out of bed are part of toddlers' development. but a regular bedtime routine helps toddlers to feel ready for sleep. You can also try out things like bedtime checks, lots of praise, and free passes. And finally, know that it takes time for you and your toddler to figure out what works. It can be tiring, physically and emotionally, but know that plenty of parents out there, myself included, get help from family, friends, or professionals. It's more than okay to ask for help if you need it. As always, we've got plenty of handy links in the show notes so you can find out more about toddler sleep, plus how to know where you can find the support that you need. Check out our other episodes for more deep dives into those big parenting questions. And tonight, I hope that you can rest a little easier.